Guys, we are finally in summer. I'm filming this on summer solstice, which is the longest day of the year. And today I'm here in my Zone 5 garden to show you that it's not too late to still plant food. Whether your season started late, life just got busy, or you're ready for your second round of summer crops, there's still so much you can start from seed even in colder climates. So if you're watching and think it's too late to plant, it's not. The summer solstice is your green light to keep on planting. Let me know in the comments what you're planting this week. And if you're new here, my name is Marsha and I'm the Black Thumb Gardener. I live in Ontario, Canada, USDA Zone 5B, and I share beginner-friendly gardening tips all from my backyard garden. So hit subscribe if you want to plant right alongside me, or if you just want to watch some gardening content. 2 weeks ago, I started my summer crops indoors. I have a small backyard garden, and at the time I did not have enough space for them. I usually like to direct sow my summer crops into the garden, or depending on space, I will start them indoors and then leave them outside to grow, which makes my life easier because then I don't have to harden them off, and it also eliminates the need for grow lights or an indoor setup. This way the sun does all of the work. I personally prefer to direct sow my cucumbers because they have sensitive roots and they don't love being transplanted. And when they are direct sown, they tend to germinate really fast in warm soil. But again, I did not have space for them yet, so I am going to be very careful in transplanting them. Now, cucumbers love to climb. They have tendrils that grab onto anything nearby, so I like to plant them near a trellis, and this helps to keep the fruit cleaner and also improves air circulation. It's also a great space saver, especially for small space gardeners like myself. This year, I'm growing two types of cucumbers. One is called homemade pickles. I grow it specifically to make my own refrigerator pickles. I usually store them in jars in the fridge, but this year I'm also going to try canning them for the first time. The other variety is called Talladega. It's great for fresh eating. I love slicing it into salads or just enjoying it with a little salt on a hot day. You really only need one plant to get a good harvest, but this year I'm growing two of each variety to make sure we have plenty of cucumbers. Now, each cucumber plant can produce around 10 to 20 cucumbers per season, depending on the variety and how often you harvest. The more you pick, the more they tend to produce. No matter which variety you grow, cucumbers have one main enemy, the cucumber beetle. These pests are drawn to the scent of cucurbit plants, especially young seedlings, and they can do more than chew on the leaves. The real danger is that they spread bacterial wilt, which can take down a healthy plant really fast. Now, I don't use row covers on my cucumbers. I mostly save those for my brassicas, but instead I try to keep things simple. I check the plants regularly and I handpick any beetles I find. Keeping the area around the plants clean and weed-free also helps to limit where they can hide. Now, I have grown burpless cucumber varieties in the past, and I can honestly say that it made a huge difference in my garden. These types are not only gentler on your digestion, but they also seem to attract fewer cucumber beetles. They also give off less of the scent that draws the cucumber beetle in, and that small shift really helped in my garden. With the cucumbers planted, next up are the beans. This year I'm only growing bush beans because my trellises are already spoken for with other crops. Bush beans are compact, fast growing, and perfect for smaller spaces, especially if you succession plant every few weeks to keep a steady harvest going. Now, I'm planting them in my former lettuce bed. It's a great spot for beans, especially because I'm careful not to plant them near onions. Beans and onions don't make good neighbors. Onions can actually inhibit the growth of beans by interfering with beneficial soil bacteria that beans need to fix nitrogen. So by rotating out the lettuce and avoiding onion companions, I'm giving these beans a strong start. One of the cool things I find about growing bush beans is that they're legumes, which means that they help fix nitrogen in the soil. They form a relationship with beneficial bacteria on their roots that takes nitrogen from the air and stores it into the root system. But here's the catch that no one really tells you. most of that nitrogen isn't available to the beans themselves or other plants nearby. It really becomes useful after the season ends, when the plant breaks down and returns those nutrients back to the soil. So beans are great to include in crop rotations to help enrich your garden long term, especially if you leave the roots in place after harvesting. One thing I love about growing bush beans is how quickly they produce. You can usually start harvesting just 50 to 60 days after planting. That makes them perfect for quick summer succession planting, especially if you're working with limited space. Now this year I'm trying out 4 new varieties I picked up on a trip to the West Coast Seed Store in British Columbia: Royal Burgundy, Celine, Goliath, and Derby. All of them mature in just under 60 days, so I'm excited to see how they compare both in the garden and on the plate. So far we've been planting some of the fastest summer crops, most of them maturing within 30 to 60 days. And there's one more that definitely belongs on that list: zucchini. Now zucchini grows fast and is incredibly productive, almost comically so. Most gardeners end up giving extras away to friends and neighbors by midsummer. Now last year I started using the extras to make zucchini bread, and it was honestly delicious. It's become one of my favorite ways to use up those surprise harvests when the plants are in full swing. This year I'm trying a container variety called Astia from Renee's Garden. It's a compact bush type that's ideal for smaller spaces and raised beds, no sprawling vines to wrestle with. That's been a bit of a theme in my garden lately. I try to choose miniature or space-saving versions of our favorite crops to make the most of the space I have. Now that the fast-growing crops are in, I'm shifting gears to some of the longer season favorites, starting with winter squash. This one's new to me and I may mess up the pronunciation. It's called Naiki curry, a beautiful red curry squash that takes around 100 days to mature, which brings me right into fall harvest season. Now I'm planting it now so it has plenty of time to grow, set fruit, and cure before the first frost. Now my first frost is the first week of October. Now is the perfect time to plant your longer growing crops like winter squash and pumpkins. They need that full stretch of warm days to reach maturity before the weather cools down. I'm also growing this year a butternut squash and a miniature pumpkin. Although those seeds haven't germinated just yet, fingers crossed that they catch up soon. Now over in another raised bed, I'm planting my melons, both miniature cantaloupe and watermelon. This year I've got the cantaloupe growing up a trellis and the watermelon planted in the same bed. Now I've had good success with watermelon in the past. They grow well here and taste amazing fresh from the vine. But cantaloupe, man, that was a bit of a flop last year. I lost most of the fruit to chipmunks before I even had a chance to harvest. So this year I'm trying something new by growing the cantaloupe vertically. I'm hoping it'll keep the fruit off the ground and out of reach, but we'll see if it helps. Comment down below if you've had the same challenges with growing fruit in your garden as I have and what you've done to preserve your harvest. Now you might be thinking I'm planting my melons a little late, but they absolutely love the heat, and honestly, we've had a lot of cool days this season. I've already seen how those colder temperatures have affected some of my other heat-loving crops like peppers, and I really didn't want to take the risk. Plus, I didn't have the space ready until now, and cold soil can really slow melons down, so I waited until things warmed up properly before planting. With melons, it's much better to plant a little later into warmth than too early into cold, and we have had a heat wave this week, and this is the perfect time to get things into the garden. Now I'm not planting at the peak of the heat wave. I'm planting in the evening when the temperatures are cooler and the seedlings have time to adjust. If you're worried though about whether you have enough days left before your first frost, you can always grab a mature plant from the garden center. It's a great way to catch up and still enjoy heat-loving crops like melon, squash, or even tomatoes, especially if you're starting later in the season. If you are planning to save seeds from your melons or any cucurbit like squash, pumpkins, or cucumbers, it's really important to think about cross-pollination. These plants are all a part of the same extended family, and they're pollinated by insects, which means if you plant them too close together, the bees can mix things up. You might end up with seeds that grow into unpredictable hybrids the next year, not true to type. So if you're not seed saving, it's not a big deal. But if you are, try to separate similar crops by distance, or you can hand pollinate and bag the flowers to keep the genetics pure. Before watering everything in, I also direct sow corn into one of my raised beds. Corn really doesn't like to be transplanted, so it's best to start it right in the soil once the weather is warm. I planted it in 2 rows in one of my 2 by 5 foot beds, spacing the seeds a few inches apart. The rows are close together, which is actually ideal because corn is wind pollinated, and planting in blocks or tight groupings like this helps to ensure good pollination and fuller ears of corn. Now this variety does well in small spaces, and I've enriched the bed with compost so it has the nutrients it needs, and corn is a heavy feeder and loves rich soil and consistent moisture. Now there's an old saying for northern gardeners that is knee-high by the 4th of July. It's kind of a traditional milestone to gauge how your corn is doing. And while it's not a hard rule, it usually means your plants are off to a strong start and on track for a good harvest. It comes from a time when corn was more commonly grown in cooler regions, and hitting that knee-high mark by early July meant that your crop had enough time left in the season to fully mature before the first frost. So that's what I'm aiming for with this bed, and with the warm weather finally here, it's definitely still possible. With everything planted, I gave all of the beds a good soak. Watering right after planting helps the roots settle in and kickstarts new growth, especially important for heat-loving crops like these, and especially important during a heat wave. So this year I've added irrigation to my raised beds, and if you want to see that video, it is up on my channel. You can go take a look, and I'm really excited about it. Each bed now has a line that waters the plants right at the base, exactly where it's needed. And that means the leaves stay dry even during regular watering. That might seem like a small deal to you, but it makes a big difference. A lot of the crops I planted today, like cucumbers, zucchini, melons, squash, and even beans, are prone to fungal diseases like powdery mildew and downy mildew, especially when their leaves stay wet for too long. And I'm in a really humid environment too. By keeping the foliage dry and soil evenly moist, irrigation helps prevent those diseases before they start. And that can mean the difference between a thriving crop and one that fizzles out before harvest. Until next time, happy planting and happy summer solstice. Bye.